Hey friends, welcome to episode 7 of Cloud Code Live. I'm joined by GPS and Alf, and we'll be talking about tips on how we learn new tech or new stuff. So, starting off, we have on how we pick our new subjects or topics of interest. So, who would like to take the first shot at it?
I can go first. So I guess that like my main point when choosing what to learn next is how it would actually fit in my current stack. Like I mentioned before in previous episodes, that I have a kind of a consistent stack that is like Next.js, TypeScript, Tailwind, CSS, and then backend is the most like changeable part of it. And so whenever there is something like a new interesting use for like a data store database or a backend service, or maybe something that where I want to learn more backend engineering, which is like I feel like I'm more of a front end than a backend engineer anyways. That's when I decide, okay, where would be the use case that makes me choose this technology over others. So for example, now I'm looking into Fastify, and I was looking like I was not no I don't know if I will adopt it consistently, but I was looking into it because it's very similar to Express, and it's very fast, it's very nice, so I potentially can make some of my work that I wanted to do in Express in Fastify just to learn the technology. Usually it's also based on how much like how much material is around it, like especially if the documentation is well written and a lot of people refer to the documentation online, and then to me it's easier to actually pick it up, because I feel like having a strong documentation is even better than having like a lot of like tutorials. Because I feel like when I am deep in the weeds of something, I will refer much more to the documentation, and a strong documentation is very important for me.
I think when it comes to new things, for me, it revolves around what I'm doing at work. And then I'll just try to, whatever topic I sort of need to work on, I'll try to implement on like a personal project. And then I get like extra hands on practice and whatever. That documentation part that you mentioned is super important, because I'm doing stuff with Cosmos DB at work, and yesterday I just spent like 2 hours reading documentation on partition keys and understanding how data is partitioned and stuff like that. But I think that's at the level that we're at now, where we value documentation over tutorials. I think in general, unless we're learning something completely new, which I can't remember the last time that I've learned something completely new where I've had to go from like, I guess a big zero, yeah. But yeah, I tend to stay sort of near the ecosystem that I'm already familiar with, because there's just so much to explore there. Like I don't really see much of a benefit in picking up something from complete scratch. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, again, a lot of them it's like since like .NET, I'll explore Blazor, or I'll explore like I don't know, some other front end way or web app technology you can use with C#, things like that. But yeah, it's sort of like, all right, where's my best bang for my buck to pick topic, like to make the most out of my time.
No, for sure. Yeah, I think, like Gwen said, we are at a point where like we prefer documentation more. But I think in the past I have referred to like good tutorials, especially some of them are like you can find really good ones on YouTube. And that's what I referred to in the past most of the times. But then I realized, because you have to like go through the documentation when you're stuck, I think it's a good starting point. I think that's how I learned why documentation is important. Yeah, for me, the picking thing is totally based on either work or something that caught my eye. So I am huge into like writing articles, but I'm also huge into reading about new technology. And sometimes there might be something that'll catch my eye, and I'll try to dig deeper and see what it is about. But I would say right now I'm at a stage where like 70% of the new stuff that I try to learn is work related, and I think I'm okay with that, at least because I feel like I'm learning, so my like the brain is it's kept alive.
Do you find yourself, and this is for all of us, do you find yourself having like FOMO if while not like following the trends or the latest thing that tech Twitter is talking about?
A lot, and I think I followed your advice, Gwen, on this, and I think we talked about this in depth earlier about how like tech Twitter can sometimes have negative impacts. Not only tech Twitter, it can be any other platform that you might be using. But for me, because I spent like a lot of time on Twitter, and yeah, I think shutting it off really helped me. Like now, I'm way less active than I used to be. And just by active, I don't mean like tweeting and stuff. Just going through the feed, like there's so much content out there, especially on like JavaScript and Python and the whole debate. It just makes me like, oh, I should go and see what this new framework is, or I should go and I need to learn Python because this is like everyone is learning this, right? And especially people who are posting facts, like that just kills me. I'm like, oh, this is being used this much in like different environments. And but yeah, I think there's some level of FOMO, but it's only then when like when you're aware about what other people are posting about. Yeah, because I think this happened with you too, like with the .NET and the C# world. Like I don't know why people have hate against any of the like platforms or stacks they might use, but you see it because there's a lot less content and a lot less developers that promote like C# or .NET or Blazor. And that is why people who are using other tech stacks hate on it, which doesn't make sense at all. But in the end, yes, it generates a FOMO, especially it did for me.
I feel like that's going to, I mean, just a quick note on the .NET thing. I think that's going to change drastically within the year. With 6, especially with like Kelsey Hightower. Did you see that tweet that he said about his opinion on .NET 6? And I think that's something shared amongst like a lot of people. But anyway, I was gonna say, so this last example of FOMO that I had was Ethereum development, smart contracts, and that kind of stuff.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Twitter's all over like, this is the new thing. All developers come here. Quit. You're literally, I see this tweet at least once a week. It's like, I quit my job to get a 30%. I'm making 30% less.
30% cut.
Yeah, but I'm in
Just
the edge of technology, blah blah blah, and stuff like that. I'm like, all right. So what I did was I like to inform myself on topics. Like I picked up this book by CoinGecko, which also is like by the API that we're working with for that session thing that we're doing. But anyway, I picked up a book by them. I read it. I was like, cool, I understand. At least I know, what's going on. And if I wanted to sort of like dive deeper and I don't know, make content or make something with it, I probably could. But it was enough to like satisfy, like just being informed, I feel like kind of pushes the FOMO away. And I'm like, all right, I have so much more to learn right now with what I'm already working on that I can't like, if I stop learning what I'm currently learning, I'm not going to get anywhere.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah, I feel that it's also like a very important part of like fighting the FOMO is realizing that every single day there's someone that comes up with a new idea and they're gonna be creating the FOMO because it's like it's their idea, they have to push it out. Like no one goes out, creates a new framework and says it's another one. If you wanna choose it, choose it. If you don't, you don't. No, they say no, this is the bleeding edge of technology. This is like the thing that you have to do next. And the fact is that a lot of people kind of follow that like type of alpha personality, or like, oh man, I need to follow that. So every single person has to like push water to their and they have to like make their case. They have to like show that like what they're working on is in some way better than the others. And I'm reading this book now called The Pragmatic Programmer, which is like a very famous book like released 20 plus years ago, and now I'm reading the 20th anniversary re-edition, and everyone says it's like everyone will tell you that there is one solution, like one ultimate programming language, one ultimate framework and similar, and there is not. It's all about the underlying good solid practices that you can implement wherever you want, and then you find a solution that is ad hoc for the project that you're working on, and it can be something that you never worked on before. Say that I never worked in like with C#, I never really work with it, but like when the time comes that I finally decide to dive into game development, that's gonna be it's probably gonna be the best one, because Unity is built on that, and Unity is the one that has the highest community support basically, so it's gonna be the easiest one to learn, and that's C#. So that's gonna be the solution, but I can't like come up with my own thing. I can't, like, there is people now making video games with React, for example, and 3JS, but I don't think I want to start making games with React, even though I really enjoy React. So, but actually, this actually really follows this whole conversation drives very well to another question of like, how do we find the material that we like, and how do we actually define what we like and what we don't like. And I think that it's a very, especially in today's world of like content that is like served every single moment, there is new content coming out, how like judging what is worth your time and worth your effort is pretty hard. And if anyone wants to give a shot on like how do they define quality?
Sure, I think I'll go first. For me, it's reviews, or either somebody suggested me to go with that. So I think in these cases, Twitter and like being part of a community helps a lot, because you'll definitely find someone who has already done what you did or what you're trying to do, and they will have few suggestions on like which book is the best, or for this one you might want to prefer a video course instead of a book, because the way the author, whoever created the course, explained it is phenomenal. And most of the times it's community driven decision that I take on, like, okay, I'm registering for this course because someone said, or like X amount of people said it's really good, or I'm buying this book because Y number of people said this is really good.
I don't really use video content. That might be a surprise because I like make so much of it.
Yep.
But for me, I can't learn from, like, the only video course that I went through was the like Linux Academy at AWS certified developer one a couple years ago, and that's because it was like, so like the videos were broken up to like literally like maybe 8-10 minutes max, and then there was like a lot of labs in between and stuff like that. But I can't do like Udemy courses. Like I literally bought one on Blazor WebAssembly last week, over the weekend actually, and gave it a try, and I just can't. It just doesn't work for me. I think that's like my first big tip is find the type of content that works for you too. Like for some people it'll be text, for some people it'll be video, for some people it'll be a mix of both. For me, it's just never worked. Like video, it's always it's like pretty much just documentation, and then oftentimes the documentation will have for example, like Microsoft Docs has a lot of like, learn modules that you can go, or sometimes they'll even say like book recommendations and stuff like that. But yeah, figure out what type of content works for you, because there's so many amazing instructors out there that do video. It just doesn't work for me, but that doesn't mean that they're not quality, right? So putting in the time to figure that out, like, and I see, like, I had a friend who was super frustrated, and we became friends over, like, this person asked me like for C# recommendation on content, and then they had become so frustrated. They said that I was trying like to go through so many books and like I just can't get it. So then I sent over like the .NET series that Scott Hanselman did for C#. And then he's like, oh, this is great. This works perfect. And it's like, find what works for you. I've spent a lot of time figuring out what works for me, and then I kind of just go from there. But yeah, these days it's like I don't really buy things. It's always like documentation or like tutorials, like written tutorials or articles out there. yeah, again, I tried buying a course, but it didn't really work out.
Yeah, no, that is a great point. Yeah, you got to find like what works for you, like how is the best way that you learn new things. And in order to find that, you have to try. So for me,
try it all.
Yeah, for me, it is a mix of both like video and like sometimes books, or like Gwen said, like learn modules are a great way. And then Microsoft documentation is really good.
For me, I have a kind of specific way of handling most of what I learn. Is like I want to have one large tutorials, say things like free code camp tutorials. Like I do a lot of my bulk learning with video and edge cases with articles, because a lot of the time, like making a video about a very specific quirk of a language, but it's not language, like quirk of like whatever I'm learning about. So for example, there was this thing about React context. I went through courses about React, learning context, but there are some specifics about context on like how to organize multiple complicated contexts, because it becomes a very cumbersome thing to manage, and Ken C. Dodds had a very specific article on managing React context, and that really filled the spot that I was missing from like a more video, like larger tutorial content. And I feel like those work for me because I can fit them whenever I can. Like I don't have to like sometimes I even just like listen to them almost to a degree like a podcast. It's not as often because like especially when it's code heavy, I kind of want to like either follow along or like recreate my own way of what I'm seeing. But there are some others that are more on theoretical in nature, that are like more like a podcast, almost like consumed in a podcast. Like I put it somewhere and then maybe I do something else like cooking or something, and so it doesn't really work. Like as a like major learning, like it's not like, oh yeah, like now I'm setting up and learning these, but it's more like this is more to reinforce myself, like my knowledge in certain ways. But I really prefer video because I'm kind of a visual learner, and then documentation is at the point of when, okay, this video has solved the point of like getting me the gist of it, and now I want to learn the details, and then I go to the documentation for the details or for the more advanced stuff. So mostly because video I can chug through it pretty quickly.
You could put that on like and then 2x.
Yeah, I feel like I do 2x just because there are sometimes when it's like very extensive, but I don't feel like I don't have the urge to finish a course if I buy it. Like as when I have a feeling that I got enough out of the course or the video I'm looking at, I'm okay just dropping it. A lot of people have the 2x just so that they finish the course.
Yeah.
And just because you say, oh, I spent like $15, like $50 or something, and it doesn't really, it doesn't, like, I don't have the necessity, because if I myself think I got enough, because I can actually recreate the stuff without having to relook at the video, then I don't have the urge to actually finish the entire video. One actual change, like one course that I was recently going through that is different, that is like an actual text-based course, is the CSS for JavaScript developers by Josh Como. And Como, I think it's Como, I hope I'm not butchering his name, but that course is like insane. Like that is the highest, I think that is the highest value course I've ever sat through in my life. And it's on CSS, and it's mostly text-based, and then there are some examples that are like a little 6 minutes video walkthrough, but that is an insanely high quality, and it's like something that I never expected to enjoy as much, because I'm not a read-through person. Like I don't read stuff, but that is so well organized and in high quality, and also because, as Richard was mentioning, it's endorsed by so many people that I follow, like for example, when Adam Watton, the creator of Tailwind CSS, was like, "Oh, this is like the resource to learn CSS," I'm like, "Okay, so like I love the CSS and the creator. I love the Tailwind CSS. When the creator of Tailwind CSS tells me that this is worth it, then it is worth it, and I bought it in early access. But also the fact is just like like Josh, I've been following Josh for a pretty long time, and it's a very very high quality. Has so many good articles about so many things about UI and UX and like all of CSS world, and it's like just that the quality was gonna be high.
I was gonna mention, now that you bring up a course that you sort of recommend, there's this one called Practical. So this website called practical.net, I believe. It's by John Hilton. Have you used it?
No,
he has
checked it out though.
He has a course called Blazor WebAssembly by Example. It is so good. I think there's 5 lessons, and you could get it done in a day if you have like .NET knowledge. But it is so well done. It's like he's just having a conversation with you, and there's like I like when courses, like, you'll go through the content and they'll also provide like additional resources, but within the actual content, there'll be like a word or a concept that you can click on it, and it'll be like more of expansion, but you don't have to necessarily read that to continue with the content, so it doesn't like get in your way, because there's something worse than like just being overwhelmed by the amount of content that you have to go through, the amount that you have to read to like understand something. So that's like a great course I just wanted to recommend if anyone's interested in Blazor WebAssembly or .NET in general. And you mentioned about like sort of like the passive and active learning. I too, like, the one place that I will listen to like videos or like watch videos or maybe have them in the background is when I'm doing chores as well, to have sort of like that passive learning where I'm like reinforcing something. Like a good example is yesterday I read like 2 hours about partition keys with Customs VB, and then I like threw on a couple of videos while I was doing like cleaning this place and packing. So that's also a way to like, okay, maybe today I can't sit down and, I don't know, do something for 2 hours, but I could, throw on something in the background and listen to it, or put it on my headphones, listen to it while I'm, doing some other thing. So that's like a good thing to keep in mind. Like, you don't have to be every single day 2 hours just sitting down there and just learning and studying, and like, because our lives, we live lives.
Yeah, Antonio said a good point of like when you chug through courses. Like, I think I've only done 2 courses completely on Udemy, because that was, I think it was the beginning of my career. I was trying to get into cloud, and I needed to get my cloud practitioner, and that's when I did like the entire course. Whereas I feel like once you're like in the field for a few years and you're experienced, I think the best way to do is how Antonio described it, is just to get like, how much value you have gotten from a course. There is no need to like complete it. But yeah, I think this brings up really good question on how we schedule or find time to study. So, who wants to share?
I can go, because mine changed. So like the beginning of this year, while I was working at ACG, I had to like reinforce my Linux skills. Mm-hmm. And I remember January 1st, I'm like, all right, I'm going to study every single day and get like a certification in the next month or something. So I would wake up earlier and I'd spend 2 hours just studying, like reading stuff. That's where I like really got into those books, like the command line, the command line book and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, I just got this motivation out of nowhere. And then I was like really, really strict with it, disciplined. And I, got up every day earlier before work. I would just study for 2 hours. And then all of a sudden it went away. Like I stopped being able to like sit down and study until like lately, to the past month or so. I feel like, and then there have also been times where I'm like, oh, I feel terrible that I didn't do anything outside of work, which is not like a good, I guess, attitude to have either, because rest is important. But in here it's like I like to schedule times, and I like to think of it as like, in general, am I in like a studying, have I been studying? And that doesn't mean every single day, right? If I feel like I go like several months without doing something, then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to pick up my act. And then from there I'll schedule like, okay, I need to pass this thing, or I need to make this project, or I need to implement this demo or whatever, and then I'll schedule studying time around that. Like, all right, I can do an hour today, or I can do 2 hours today, I'll do maybe 3 hours over the weekend or something like that. But But it really helps now that it's like, work requires like certain things to get done. So it's like, oh, I just have to like get it done. Back when I was in the cloud engineering gig, they would give us 2 hours every week to just learn something. And then I would like schedule like an hour earlier in the week and an hour later too. Like utilize that time. Yeah, I try to just find these pockets instead of being strict every single day, 6 a.m. till 8 a.m. you study. I just try to find these pockets that work with everything else that I have going on in life.
Yeah, I think that helps you deal with burnout too, right? Because like consistency is so important especially in tech, because things change so quickly. Like you want to make sure like you're healthy, not only physically but mentally too, and you don't burn yourself out, because not only you're spending 8 hours every day at your desk, but now with studying you're also spending like additional 2 hours out of your life.
I feel like I don't just for the same exact reasons I don't schedule time, because scheduling creates this cycle of like, if I skip one time when I scheduled, I feel bad because I was supposed to do this. And also with the fact that like a lot of the things that I need to learn for work, I learn during work, and all the other things I'm learning are for like my portfolio of knowledge, like it's my personal thing, and that they can be like, they can potentially bleed into work, like because there might be a project where I need to use something I'm learning even though it's not strictly required, and all of this is like personal development outside of not required. I do it whenever when I feel like I want to do it, and usually given that it's not that I don't set requirements for myself, it works out pretty consistently, because it's like, oh, I don't have anything to do, I don't feel like playing games, so I'm just gonna go through this article that I looked and I saved up on Dev or something. I want to see what it's about. I kind of take some time to read through articles or watch some Udemy videos, and a lot of the time it's just I kind of feel like I want to learn something new because it's like interesting, and like it's just straight out of interest. So it works pretty nicely because there is no mental commitment, but there is the mental stimulus because it's something fun, because it's just like a lot of fun to learn a bunch of new stuff, and a lot of the time it's stuff that I don't plan on using long term, but it's just to have the non-FOMO thing where there are so many people that were talking about Flutter. One time I just went through like a Flutter on like YouTube series. I learned enough Flutter to make like one app. I was on my phone and would say, "Wow, that's pretty cool." I never touched Flutter after that.
See, that's good enough,
Yeah, I know that I can, the Flutter, that's the thing, that I know that that's the base of Flutter. It's interesting. If I want to pick it back up again, I can, but I don't have any more that urge that is like, oh man, Flutter is the new thing, Flutter is the new thing. And similar that can be to like the blockchain development we were saying. I don't know. I don't think I will be moving into the blockchain space because I don't know. I feel like I love certain people that are in the blockchain space, specifically like Nader and like other people. I really, really look up to them for like the work they're doing, but it's just that it's like those few nice people and the rest is just, there is like this joke, this kind of I don't know, asshole
I get what you're saying.
environment that everyone is like, oh, if you're not in, you're out forever, blah 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 type of approach, and I just don't vibe with that.
Oh, cool. I think it's kind of a mix for me. Like Antonio brought up a good point of not scheduling like hours every day, because then it's just like it's a chore, that you have to do, right? But also Gwen mentioned a good point that if I don't do anything for a month or 2 months, I feel bad. Like a day, 2 days, weeks, I'm fine with those. Earlier I used to feel like I would have this guilt that, oh, I'm not doing anything out of my work, which is, I think, part of our hustle culture that we have. But it's a bad feeling. But yeah, if I don't do anything for like 2 months, my solution is to book an exam. and then I get back onto that learning train. I don't recommend it, but that's the solutions that I use just to get back into those learning wheels and making sure that I take out like 30 minutes out of my day to just go over new technology or new language, whatever it is. But yeah, no, that I think, yeah, over the past year for me, it always has been like I've booked an exam or I have to do an exam to get a certification, whether it be for work or whether it be a personal goal. And then I kind of just go with the flow. Like some days I would get in like 2 hours and the other days it's just like 15 minutes because I don't feel like it. I think that's the best part of it when you like don't schedule, like you have to sit 2 hours every day.
I have two things to add to this. One, I like to use sort of themes around my learning, and that kind of helps me not like try to study every single like Monday C#, Tuesday HTML, Wednesday containers, like that kind of stuff. I like to like, all right, this month I'm gonna just learn Linux related things, right? Because that in itself is like a massive topic, right? And then
for sure.
And then if I urgently want like something pops in my like I have to, I'll sort of like put it on a list and then tackle that whenever I'm free again. Also, I think the second sort of mindset that I have is a lot more important for me to be aware of a new topic than become like an expert at it, right? Because I'm already, I'm currently where I'm at, and I'm currently have my skill set and such. So, like I mentioned, like we keep saying these Ethereum development thing, but or blockchain development thing, but yeah, it's more important for me to be aware of what it is. Like, I think in tech in general, it's more important for you to be aware than an expert, because once you put on a job and they're like, oh, do you know about this? And you're like, yeah, I go figure out how to do it. Like, they're going to give you time to go figure it out. No one's going to be like, oh, tomorrow you have to be the Kubernetes expert. So you're going to, you must have spent like the last 3 months, studying it every single day, thing like that. Right. So I think having those two sort of those tips for myself kind of helped me be like, all right, I'll like, whatever's interesting this month is what I'm going to tackle, or whatever I need to learn, I'm going to tackle.
This is just from like past experience, and this might be, I think there might be few people that it will be applicable to, but for me, I've wasted my time just based on FOMO because you see this tweet or you see this great article about, let's say, smart contracts, because we are talking about it. What I would do is I would go to YouTube, type in, and then you see, oh, there's a 3-hour video on getting up your site and having smart contracts on it. I'll go in and I'll complete the video, I'll have a project, but then I would never touch it again. And that's when it hits me that how like I changed my focus, because I might be doing something other than smart contracts that might have been my goal earlier, and how I drifted from it because I just saw this tweet that has like, I don't know, 89K likes. And I want to get on to this new technology. But then I realized, like, in the long term, I don't think I'll be working or I want to work in that field.
Yeah, think long term. That's another tip there. Think long term. I was going to say, we sort of answered if we use different formats for different topics. Mm-hmm. Oh, actually, if it's brand new, I'm open to a full-on course, but anything else, which typically I'm kind of in that second option, just like anything else, just strictly text.
Yeah.
And then y'all sort of a mixed bag, you two.
Kind of covered it, yeah. So if it's anything brand new, as I said, with Cloud Practitioner, I took in a full course, whereas once I have some experience with that technology, I chug through some videos and then some articles, some documentation, and also build something of my own just to get the gist of it.
Yeah. Are we learning anything actively? Do we want to share?
I'll go first because I think we'll have a call after this podcast, Gwen, where you teach me Blazor.
Oh.
So that's what's cooking for me.
But see, that's a good example of how we sort of structure our learning around things that we have to do. So, because like Rishabh's going to do a session with me at the Reactor, and it's going to be it might be on Blazor, or it might be on, what was the originally built React? or it might be we haven't decided. But I built the sort of like the prototype, I guess, in Blazor and Azure Functions. So we're gonna go through that, and then he's gonna pick that up. He's gonna learn because it's sort of like required for the session, right? I'm pretty much the same actually. So we're both kind of in the same boat, learning Blazor and SignalR and functions. Alf, I think you told us last time you're working like some Supabase stuff.
Yeah, recently I was doing Supabase recently. Like one of the thing I'm going even deeper right now is with React. One is because of like my ongoing series on TikTok on like teaching React, so I'm just like refreshing some concepts just so that I can actually retell them. And also another is because I am getting interested in topics like micro front ends, specifically
I've
with
never heard
React.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just like instead, like when you have I don't know, like you have a larger interface that instead of having one monolithic front end application, you have many smaller ones, or even on the same page. Like you have like your cart that is an application on its own, and you have your item list is an application on its own.
Is it decoupled or it's?
It's all, yeah, it's decoupled. You have to
Interesting.
understand all about because it depends on like the use case, and a lot of the time it can be that you have like very very complicated applications that like where the backend is pretty complex, like you interact with a lot of like microservices for independent things, and like making small changes, like making even small changes means that you have to make that change reflecting so many other parts of the application. So instead of having to do that in one monolithic application, you have like one single application that just takes care of that part, and then you just combine them together in a larger application. So it's like the concept of microservices where each service does one thing, and then you just maintain the communication between them, and but applied to front end. So like the UI and the interface and all of the front end that is interacting. So that's one thing I'm working on recently, because it's a very new concept, and I don't feel like a ton of people really work on it yet, like really work on it with like a very large scale. But I think it's gonna be interesting because it's another step in making teams work with the tools that they want to work with, because potentially you can have like your cart in Blazor, and then you have your product page in React, and they work on the same inter application, like in the same screen. So you can everyone can work with the tool that they want and make it work just seamlessly, no problem. So that's an interesting concept to me. And yeah, just still in the world of microservices, I wanna up a little bit my backend skills as well.
Yeah, just to add to that, I'm also working or trying to learn. Like I know somewhat of Terraform, but I have hit this roadblock at my work because I'm building these custom modules with Terraform and Packer. So trying to get some more advanced knowledge on those.
My puppy decided to visit us here. Can you see him? I was gonna say maybe a useful thing to touch on, just because we have a little bit of time left, is sort of like how because we all sort of create content to an extent. Like what's the methodology that we use when we're creating it?
I can go like, because I started exploring that world right now, basically, because I've not been like super active in the world of content development, content creation as much as I would have liked. But my main approach right now is, especially when deciding what type of content to make, is first of all, the content I make is mostly for myself. Like a lot of the time it's just like I want to cement my knowledge in certain topics, and having to re-explain it to someone else means that I have to have the mastery first, because otherwise why would I explain something that I don't know myself? And so there is that kind of like it's not like exactly selfish, but like it's like a personal interest in like creating that type of content. And second is like about where do I see certain things lacking? Like where, like when I was learning a certain thing, why, where, like which type of content would I have loved to have had access to when I was looking for that, when I was learning that specific thing. So a lot of the time there is already that content, and I just didn't find it when I was learning it, or it just came out after I learned the thing, and they were like, oh wow, that's great content, but sometimes it just doesn't, it's not there. So, for example, one of the example is the recent blog post that I made about setting up a testing framework with Next.js, TypeScript, and a lot of like other packages. And because there is not like a one size fit all method of like testing Next.js applications, and with TypeScript, with Path, like TypeScript paths and a lot of other features that are very nice to have, but there is not like a center of truth, like single source of truth to make them all work together. So I spent a lot of time to try to put this thing together, and that was oh, I wish I had this resource when I was trying to build this, and now the resource is there because I built that. So that's one approach I have to content creation, which is also why it's slow for me to make content, because a lot of the time is either things that I have to learn better, or is stuff that was never, like I never before, like I don't have that mentality of just putting it out even if it's already there, because I always try to do a little bit more, and unfortunately that's not the very conducive to making a lot of content.
For me, it's like last year was all blogs, so I had no video content, or didn't plan a lot of video content. And for blogs, for me, it was, if I understood a concept really good, I would love to like put it into words so that I just wanted to see how well I can explain it to someone. And in order to do that, I would just write a blog and post it. I didn't take as Antonio said, like his approach, I think, is more about value, like how much value would it bring to others, because like most of the time, as he said, that content is not out there already. That's where his focus is. Yeah, for me, I think, yeah, it was more casual and was for me rather than for like other people. But I want to help, like if someone gets the concept like I did from my article, awesome. And that's why I think I shifted towards video content, because it requires a lot less effort, I think. And my first goal was to just convert all my articles into videos, basically. So that's why you would see like a lot of repetitive content from me. But that was kind of my approach.
And I think honestly it's a positive approach, because the thing is that there is always value in putting your own spin to a topic, even if it's already been explained a lot of times, because like as we mentioned, like there are multiple ways of learning things, and maybe not all of them resonate with you, and there may be always someone that resonates with the way that you're explaining the content compared to other ways. And then, for example, in like the React series on TikTok, there's someone that said, oh, these short like 2-minute video on state was much more like clicked much more with me compared to like this like 10-15 minute video on using state and similar, because it was more direct and more condensed and more easy to understand with the examples. So I feel like even though like I still have that like feeling that I want to put out some content, mainly because I always have this mentality of the content I'm putting out is kind of my professional footprint. So if someone that is like hiring wants to see what type of content I created, and then if they see that I just make basic things, like in my opinion basic, and again it's not correct to say that, but like my mentality of saying, oh, if you just show that you're doing very basic stuff, then they think that your skill level is like the basic level, so they don't want to hire you. But that's a very, very negative mentality to have. It's just that it's very hard to wrap your hand around that is not the correct mentality. Like even though I'm telling it right now, when I'm sitting down to write some blog post or shooting a video, I'm always like, oh, I think this is too basic, and people will think that it's not it's not very advanced and similar. So it's always a little bit of that like internal fight.
So my approach to anything content related from last year to this year has changed drastically. Like last year, my mindset was, so I had two things. I definitely wanted to grow my platform, so I knew I had to be consistent. So I knew I was going to have to be making one piece of content. In my case, it was YouTube every single week. Or if I could even do two, like I was going to do two, but whatever. Like my goal was to grow. And second, my goal was for every single piece of content that I was putting out there, that you, with just consuming that one piece, you understood who I was as like a professional, like, because all my content was very specific. Like I don't have general like sort of this 2-hour video on, I don't know, C# or something like that. It's more like how to use input bindings, or how to use these specific input bindings within this context or something like that, right? Like very, very specific things. Because that was like the stuff that I was just doing. It was sort of just like kind of, all right, I was working on this, so now we're doing this. I'm studying this, so these things like that. But that has always been my goal for like last year. Then once I sort of came into, even maybe a little bit into this year, but then this year I sort of more shifted into more of like Al's mindset is like, where do I provide most value versus like quantity, right? Because now it's like, okay, I'm at a level where I'm happy with the balance, because if I put any more and try to be more consistent, I'm gonna like have to like take that away from somewhere else. I'll have to take away the effort, the energy that I can put to my family, the energy I can put to my like partner, to like my hobbies, to work, things like that, right? So it's a good balance now. So it's more about like which kinds of pieces of content do I believe will provide the most value and impact. And because yeah, I mean, any of us like us three could explain really, I think, in tech, like anything really, but like, does that do good for us or others? Like maybe others, but like for at the end of the day, if I'm putting something out there that isn't valuable to any extent for me, then like what's the point, right? So now it's more, all right, I have to approach it like, where's the best bang for my buck in terms of the stuff that I'm putting out there, which is why I love this podcast, honestly. Like we're all willing to put in a couple hours a week and sort of split the work to put this stuff out, and it's long and it's consistent. It's like we're doing this weekly, but I think we cover like technical stuff, we cover like life stuff. Even before like recording, we were talking about cleats. We were talking about soccer cleats, like, and we found out that we're like we've all played soccer since we were little and that kind of stuff. So yeah, maybe the approach will change later on, but yeah, right now it's more like, all right, where's the best value? Or if not, like with the project that we're doing now, Rishabh, I'm definitely gonna get a couple of videos from that, because there were some things I was like, I can't find how to figure this out anywhere.
I see.
So yeah, it's more like, all right, I feel like I have that itch now to like, or that intuition, like, oh, I need to make this into something, then I'll do it, right? But it won't be like, oh, it's a new week, I have to make a video.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah, I just wanted to bring up how the name of our podcast is so on point.
I can't remember where it came from though.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you came up with it, but
yeah, but I don't know where I got it from.
You said Code Cloud Life first, if I'm trying to remember it correctly, and then you said no, do it Cloud Code Life. I'm like, okay. Yeah.
But I feel like that's also the balance we're trying to strike. Like there are three parts of it. Like life is important in whatever tech career that you were in, because you are a person first of all, and we can talk about all we want about making sure that you have your career in check and similar. But there is also the important part of having your person, like your own life, family, like as you were saying, whenever you're putting a lot of effort in one thing, you have to put something, like remove effort from other things.
Absolutely.
And so I feel like the goal of this podcast a lot of the time has always been of showing that there is balance in the cloud code life, and I guess cloud and code can be together and life is the other part. But I guess overall in general that there is the balance is the thing that you're trying to achieve, and I guess that the NFT chasing folks that want to get rich quick are not the balance that, like, at least not the type of balance that I'm striving to achieve in my own life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think that we covered basically all of what we wanted to cover for today. So it's a good time to wrap it up. All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in into episode 7. And now, wow, 7 episodes. That's 7
Almost
weeks.
10.
Almost 10. We're closer to 10 than we are to 5. Almost, and almost there. If you round it in a certain way, it works. But yes, thank you so much again for tuning in this new episode. We're gonna be back next week, and as always, you can follow us on all of our social media, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, and as always, thanks again, and peace.